Oh, yeah, I didn't even think of that. That last time they had it preloaded, right?
Okay.
I think you did it for me, but I can plug right in. If you have a cord.
Yeah, I've got her.
What are you next to you right now?
Yeah, I assume so.
That's fine. Oh, we're USB stick?
Yeah.
I got live links.
So that.
Do you have email access from there, or is there a different? I can send to someone.
Yeah, I'm all for it. And either one of those guys works.
Oh, no. Oh, we did.
I think I might have it on the
Presentations?
I don't. Well, I didn't do the contract.
And the other ones,
They're pretty similar.
and the other one, Chad called me on your other. Chad called me on your other. 170, I knew what it was before, the door, all things, and basically she rushed up to this.
I always try to not drink water while I'm
I
driving.
think. I was very, today was very. Yeah.
How many different groups do we have here? Got like 1, 2, 3, 4,
Well,
5, 6, 7, 8, maybe?
There it is. Yeah, so you'll see in that.
What do I got?
Portland,
Ooh.
Their state, at that time, there was more golden achievement on the half of the world.
I'm not willing to do that.
Very nice. So this is the housing one then? Okay, cool. All right. So I don't know, everybody here is contractors, if you want to try to use around and pick one, and then if we run out, I can, send it to you, if we don't have enough. And then if anybody needs to leave, I'm just gonna put my cards out here, if anybody needs to grab one of those, you guys can make a question. And I will follow along on my end, just let us that page.
This is what you want to be signing, filling out, that has to do with that on the wall.
Okay. Awesome. Well, I think I'm good to go. If you guys are good to go, do you think this is close enough? Is it picking me up? I kind of talk loud. Anyways. So I'm like, we'll probably be okay. Here. There we go. All right. Well, we'll go ahead and get started if y'all are ready to begin. Thank you so much for coming. This is a great turnout. I'm really happy to see all of you here. So my name is Megan Unruh, and this is Mr. Mike Schwartz. So we're from SCED, the South Central Kansas Economic Development District. I am the grant administrator working with the city on this project. And then Mike is our inspector. So he's our head inspector that first looks at all the properties in the program before it gets to the contractor. So we'll kind of go over a little bit more of that, but I'm really excited about the turnout. Thank you all for coming. This is a great opportunity to see if it's a good fit for you. Since it is a federally funded program, there are some rules and things that we have to follow, but I'm happy to help you with those kind of every step of the way. I'm used to working with contractors and kind of getting folks where they need to go. So we'd be happy to go over this now for you. Next slide, please. I'll follow along as well. So once again, we are SCED, the South Central Kansas Economic Development District. You can see why we use the acronym a lot. So we're a nonprofit organization. We've been working in public service for over 50 years, and we're technically an economic development district. So we serve the South Central Kansas region and serve several counties within this area. Next one. Just a little background information on us. We kind of have a few different departments that we work within. We have our weatherization program, which provides services to about the south half of Kansas. So if any of you are, in HVAC and things like that, they do have an annual procurement for the weatherization contractors that they do every fall. So if you're interested in that, if you're licensed and you perform that type of work often, you can always reach out to me at my card listed or at my email listed on my card, and I can get you in touch with that department too. We also have a business loan department. We do grant writing and grant administration, which is me. I've been working with the city throughout this application from the writing phase and now to the administration phase. Then we also have our resurgence program that's in Reno County, where we do some housing rehab as well. So those are kind of our main four things we have within SCED. And then this is a general idea for you of kind of what our service territory is. We have our weatherization counties in blue, and then our grant membership counties in orange and blue. Greenwood County is an outlier there. They are actually served by a different weatherization county, but we still do quite a bit of work with those folks. So just so you can see kind of the breadth of where we have projects like kind of currently going. We have about 8 cities we have housing grants we're working in right now. So if you are interested in participating in the program, there's kind of lots of opportunities that we have throughout this region if you're interested in traveling, or if you really just want to be a part of this program to make a difference in your city directly, we totally support that as well. We like to see these grants be awarded and not only help the residents of the community, but also be able to put back into the local economy and provide resources and funds to local contractors too. So this is just a little bit of our experience in housing programs, the work we've done across Kansas, and all the grants that we have experience working in. And then today we're talking about the community development block grants for housing. I'm going to make sure I didn't skip anything. Yeah, okay. So we're talking about the community development block grants for housing. So the types of projects that these involve are primarily owner-occupied housing or rental housing. These funds are actually awarded to the city itself. And then the city is in charge of kind of overseeing where those funds go. But they're the lead responsible entity for these grant monies. So at the end of a project, if you're working on a project, your check is being cut, directly from the city, not from a resident, is kind of how that works. To apply for these grants, the city does a comprehensive housing needs analysis, and then the maximum award is $300,000, looking at about $25,000 per residence. Sometimes we do have some additional funding from our weatherization assistance program, but 25 to 30 is usually where we kind of fall around for these. So a little bit more background. The housing rehabilitation for owners is typically at no cost to them. When we're working with rentals and landlord properties, sometimes we see those projects go even beyond that $25,000 because maybe they're wanting to get a little bit extra work done. They have to do a 25% project cost contribution anyways. So sometimes those projects have a little bit of additional items on their scope of work. And then this program also does cover demolition. Now, the city of Arc City is really prioritizing housing rehab in this grant. They do have the opportunity that if additional funds remain at the end of their project, they can do demolition if anybody does demos. Does anybody do demos that's here? You guys do? Okay, cool. So if demo contractors can be really hard to find sometimes, and a lot of times if we have folks that are driving out from like Wichita or other cities to do that, the costs are super, super high. So if we do end up doing any demolition projects, we would be happy to have you on board. And then, of course, relocation we pay for if clients are needed to be relocated for lead-based paint rules and regulations. And then this grant also covers administration and inspection. So all the services that our organization provides, as well as all of our inspections, are paid by through the grant. So mine's a little bit different, sorry. You can probably skip this one. It's the income requirements for the residents. Yeah, there we go. These are common repairs that we do typically within the grant: roof repair, replacement, HVAC, siding, electrical. We do a lot of radon gas mitigation in the program. Typically, that's something that you sub out. That's not, typically something that everybody kind of has in their back pocket. So they have someone else do that service for them. Lead-based paint repair, window repair replacement, minor foundation repair. Sometimes in the program now, we're seeing a little bit more foundation repair as the program's gotten more flexible. A lot of these older houses really desperately need that. So sometimes we might have a foundation only project. And then anything else that might meet other health or safety standards. And that can be like ADA accessibility, that could be ramps, that could be handrails, anything like that. We've also done a few like bathtub shower situation swaps lately too. So the weatherization program, typically the contractor on the weatherization side is going to handle those items, which would be like HVAC, installing duct systems, insulation, air sealing measures, and other things to that effect. And we kind of run these projects in two phases, where typically the grant work is kind of one phase and the weatherization is another phase. So we're trying to get contractors for that grant work side. And the weatherization is like a whole different procurement. But once again, if you're interested in that, I can get you that information. Oh, I got to keep track. So I did want to cover one thing before we move on too far to this. So if you look at your contractor information sheet there, you will find that there are some requirements in that packet for the program, and it kind of outlines everything for you. So one of the major hurdles, the two things, we find that most contractors we work with, like you already have your insurance, you already have your workers' compensation if required, and things to that effect, right? But the missing pieces, SAM.gov registration is required now. It's replacing the DUNS number, if you're familiar with that. So registration is free for a SAM.gov UEIN number, but it's a little bit tricky. I feel like they're still working out some of the bugs on how to make it a little bit more user-friendly since it is pretty new. So registration on that, I always tell folks, if you're applying for your SAM.gov number, it kind of happens in two phases. The first phase is you get your registration just number. They're going to ask for your business name, probably your tax ID, a copy of your founding documents, however your business is organized, things to that effect, right? So I always tell folks you want those documents in hand before you start, and just kind of collect all those things in the beginning. And then after you get your registration number, there's kind of a second phase where you go back in and you get additional information input to get a full active registration. And that allows you to receive federal funds directly and to be paid on these federal grant programs, not only in this program, but other grant opportunities as well. You get listed on the SAM.gov website as an approved contractor. So if anybody's doing any sort of procurement in the area, they can see that you're in this region, that you're listed, that you're in good standing, and that you're eligible to bid on that project. So that's the biggest hurdle, I would say. And the other would be that all contractors before these projects get to you, right, we do inspections on them. And so we know where areas of lead-based paint may be on these projects. So all contractors do have to have lead safe work practices certification or RRP certification. There are training centers for that. I think the closest one is Hayesville to here, I think still. So we work a lot with Rex Smith out there. And even if there's a large group of contractors interested, we might be able to do some kind of a discount. But I think what you're looking at for your workers to be involved with that certification is about a 1-day course, about 8 hours. I think it costs about $250 for that course last time I took it. But they teach you everything that you need to know on site that day, give you examples. You take your test like right then and there. They submit your test for you. And then they'll ask you, are there any, firms here that need to file for their firm license? So you want to say, yes, that's me. And they'll help you fill that out and send that paperwork in as well that same day. So they make it super easy. Any workers technically that are disturbing an area of lead-based paint are required to have that certification. You have to have at least one worker certified to get your lead renovation firm number. So that might be the only things on that sheet that might seem unfamiliar or something that you all might not have yet. But does anybody else have any questions on kind of those other certification items on that sheet? I think it's all probably stuff that you guys have prior knowledge of besides that. But yeah,
Okay, now, on the grant writing,
yeah.
this is something different than we've already done, landlords, or is this or is this something that we have to begin?
Oh, okay. So this first portion of the meeting is like the contractor meeting. So I'm kind of gearing this portion of the meeting towards contractors directly. And then I think what you might be referring to is landlords. We had fill out pre-applications, right, in the beginning. So that pre-application as a property owner gave you kind of access to some additional scoring points on your application. So we already have like your name, your application that you submitted previously to give you additional scoring points because your pre-application was one of the ones that helped the city get the grant, right? So that pre-application is just kind of like a simple form. The new application is like a full packet that you'd have to fill out, and we can go over that more in kind of the next meeting too.
And that could be another time.
No, right after this. Right after this. Yeah, contractor meetings now, and then citizens is following right after. So, yeah. I think that's it that I had on my additional slides. Sorry. The city does have some additional requirements for insurance you're probably already aware of. You do have to be licensed within the city to perform work on these projects as well. If you have any questions with that, we can certainly dive deeper into that. If you're not familiar with that already, I do have that listing here too. But the city will be waiving permit fees and license fees for these projects specifically.
Not license fees.
Oh. I wrote that down wrong then.
Yeah, if you're not licensed with the city, you'll still need to pay the fees to be licensed.
Okay.
But I think most of you probably are.
Okay, we can visit on that later.
But permit fees, yes, sir.
Okay. So yeah, he's the expert, so I'm gonna go with what he says. And I think that is all really on that slide. I had some other ones on some website stuff, but I covered it all. Let me see. So the next, I'm sorry, I'm burning up. These next inspections that we have are the HQS inspection was the last slide, I believe. And that's the one that Mr. Schwartz does. He does a health and safety initial inspection when he comes out to the site. So what he's checking for, sorry, I'm sweating now. Okay. So what Mike is checking for when he goes out is general scope of work. Thank Thank you. General scope of work items that we typically cover in these projects. He's looking at window condition, roof condition, foundation condition, any sort of ADA accessibility like we discussed before. He's also looking for any mode of living concerns. We cannot work in homes that have excessive pests, mold, debris, items, or if the cost that we're putting into the structure is not feasible to put money into, essentially, right? We can't put $30,000 into a house that isn't going to be there a year from now. They won't allow us to do that. So these are getting pre-vetted in the beginning by Mr. Schwartz. And then if those pass that initial inspection, they're going to go on to our lead inspections, which is the next slide. Thank you. We have a lead inspector that comes out with our testing equipment on site and can see where the areas of lead-based paint are. So you'll have on your sheet for the project already a list of which items have lead-based paint in them and kind of take the guesswork out of it for you, and which items are going to apply to those lead-based paint rules, renovation rules, right? We also test for lead dust. And then at the same time we're out there in the next slide, we also check for radon gas. We were required, to check for that in every single home that we look at. It's one of the leading causes of lung cancer in the United States. So we check every house for that and see what level they're at. We don't expect you to be able to do radon. If you can and you're certified for that, awesome. But if you aren't, that's a commonly subbed out thing that people get a quote from a radon mitigation company for their bid on the project. And then I think, yeah, we can skip that one. That's what our weatherization inspection does. All right, so we're going to pause here and I'm going to go over kind of what the bidding process looks like. So a quick summary, right? So this is a fair and open bidding process we have to adhere to for the program. So we give open opportunity to everybody, all of our contractors, to bid. So what that looks like and what we're trying to do today is we want to get your information. We want to create a point of contact with you. We want to get those sheets and like what your company name is, what your address is, who I call, who I email, all that stuff kind of turned into me. If you're missing certifications, sorry, I'm dying. Okay. If you're missing certifications, that's something I can help you with, and you can turn in your contact sheet. Just that way I have a point of communication for you and I don't lose you forever. But what we want to do is we want to get you on the bidders list with the city. So if you're on the bidders list with the city, every single time we put a project out to bid, you'll be notified of that bidding opportunity and you'll be able to bid on that project. So what that looks like is I email you directly a bid tour packet. It'll give you the property that's being bid on, exactly what we're looking to have done, and an exact date and time for all the contractors to come on site and meet with Mr. Schwartz, and he'll walk you through the project and what needs to be done on it, answer any questions. You can take measurements, and then 2 weeks from that is when bids are due back to the city. So we try to be flexible with that. You could turn paper bids into the city. If it's easier for you to do digital bids, we also have a digital bid submission option, just to kind of make it easier on the contractors. And then after that time, the city will be the final decider in looking at all the bids and deciding who the contract is to be awarded to. Now, I will say, lowest bid is obviously a driving factor. You know, we're trying to be responsible with federal funding. There are conditions to that, right? Everybody who's awarded a contract has to have a SAM.gov UEI number. They have to be able to be vetted by the federal government in that manner to show they're not on any debarment lists. They have to have proper insurance. They have to have that lead safe work practice certification. And then if you have any previous, let's say if you work on a project in bid tour number 1 and it did not go well, the odds of the city choosing to be reawarding to you in bid tour number 2 would probably be low based on that previous experience, right? So city's going to check references that are on your reference sheet in their decision-making process of which contractor they're going to award to. So lowest bid is valuable, but If someone comes in 30% lower than everybody else, we have prior estimates that we know that the projects are going to fall around. If there's a suspiciously low bid, we also have allowances in the program to say that's not a responsible bid. We want the lowest responsible bid, meaning you have all those certifications, meaning you have a good work history, and bidding incredibly low just to get the contract and then not being able to, hold to that scope of work. That would not be a responsible bid. So those are all things that we can look at. And I want you to know that not from like a threatening standpoint, but just so you know, we can't have people doing that either. So contractors who are bidding responsibly, you won't be punished. You won't be punished by someone else coming in and bidding $10,000 lower on a project and ripping it away, So after bids are awarded, we do a contract signing meeting. We get everybody together. We go over the scope of work. We make sure everything looks good, answer any specific questions the homeowner might have. You can bring color samples. You can do everything you need to do kind of in that final phase before the project starts. And then you're just about ready to go. I just have to know who your subcontractors are, and I give you a sheet to fill out, and you tell me who your subs are. Your subs do also have to have a SAM.gov registration. They don't have to be active. They don't have to do that secondary step of extra work. They just have to submit their general initial information to be working on these projects. And then after that, I issue a notice to proceed with work, and work begins. And that's kind of how that whole bidding process works. Just so you know what you're kind of getting into, if it might be a good fit for you. I want you to know kind of what that looks like up front. Okay. Does anybody have any questions on that, contractors?
How would you
Yeah.
address cost overruns?
Like change orders, yeah. So we do have specific allowances for change orders and kind of rules on that to not exceed a certain percentage amount of the total project costs already. We like things to be pretty accurate and pretty firm, but we are also under the understanding that sometimes you run into situations where you ran across something that was completely unforeseeable. We had a contractor tear out a front porch the other day and found a magical crawl space to nowhere that he had to have covered and taken care of, So we were able to do a change order for that project. When we are creating the scope of work for these projects, we do our best to try to keep them a tiny bit under our maximum budget. That way, if we do run into change order situations, we have a little bit of flexibility, because we don't want to run into the situation where we're at our maximum budget. The contractor needs a change order. The homeowner has to give that money or we can't finish, So we try to leave a little bit of flexibility there. If that's not possible, I always disclose to the early and upfront with the owner. If we run into a situation here, we're going to be honest with you and let you know what's going on. But there's a possibility there might be, a small additional overage of funds. Because when we run out of money, we run out of money. And that's due to lead abatement rules, right? So if you go over $25,000 of federal funds and you have a house that has lead in it, we have to completely abate all the lead in the property, which takes a $23,000 project to a, $100,000 project, and then all our grant money is gone. So when we hit 25, it's all we have. So we do work with contractors on that, though. So does anybody else? Excuse me. Yeah.
When, if we get the job, you accept our bid for the job, we sign everything.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is up to us to buy all the materials up front.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So that is something to be aware of with entry into the program, is that it's typically a one-time payment program. If there's an act of God, if there is a reason that's very valid that the project had to be stalled, there are allowances to do like a half point drawdown. The Kansas Department of Commerce, who awards these grants, doesn't prefer that, but they understand that there are situations where what if something happens, So it is possible to do that if required. But that's a great question. And I would want you all to know that you do have to purchase the materials up front. and then you're most likely getting paid within 30 days of project completion. Yeah. Anybody else? I know we're getting close to the housing meeting on that. Yeah? Okay. So I think next slides, we can skip over this because that's for the housing. So the next few slides are kind of before and afters. Oh, sorry, if you want to go back to that one. Yeah. This was a house that we did in the previous Arc City grant that we administrated. So I wanted to give you all some real life examples of exactly what was done on site for grant funds. So new vinyl siding, roof, windows, guttering, downspouts, splash blocks, and then brought electrical up to code. So pretty commonly, the way these projects run is we have a general contractor who oversees the entirety of the project, right? And then you can have your subs come in and they can do whatever additional work that they need. And you're in charge of paying those subs and you're in charge of taking those or assigning those subs, excuse me. So you're in charge of that phase of the project, and then you work in conjunction with Mr. Schwartz on anything that needs to be changed or any questions going on. He does the final inspection on the scope of work when everything is completed to make sure everything is done correctly. And then at the very end of your project, you have a lead clearance that has to be done. And if you haven't done a lead safe work practices courses or anything like that yet, that's something that they go over in those courses. We have to ensure that the job site is clean at the end of it and is cleaned properly and there's no lead dust hazards remaining, so that we go back in, we test, we do swipes, send them off, and when those come back clean, your project is done, and we can proceed with payout. Next one, please. These are just quotes. We can skip those if you like. Another before and after. We recently had this one in Harper. New back door, vinyl siding, wrappings, painting the porch posts, painting the front steps, railings, lots of painting done outside, and electrical brought up to code. And then she was served with additional weatherization services as well. Sorry, next slide, please. This was a project we had in Cedarvale. I love this one because you can see how some of these smaller homes, we can really do everything. Siding, roof, windows, front porch, guttering, downspouts, all of that. Tuck pointing of the foundation walls, electrical brought up to code, and he got a little new back deck. So lots of things can qualify underneath the health and safety category, as long as it meets the standards that Mr. Schwartz is very familiar with in his initial inspection. And I think I have one more. Yeah, we are now allowed to do some emergency repair projects. This formerly would not have been approved for rehabilitation due to the amount of work that was required on this structure. As you can see, even in the after picture, this roof might need even a little bit more work. We could have done some windows. We could have done some other things. We used to have to do all or nothing. If we could not get all of the health and safety issues in a home, we had to deny a project. We no longer have to do that. Yay. So we can do projects like this, where exact same home, you can see what this porch and overhang rebuild did for this resident, and they weren't even able to use their front porch anymore. Really incredible. So sometimes you might just have one really large thing that you do in a project. And then I think that's it. If you have any specific questions, I know we're running a little bit over, contractors, my apologies. You can definitely follow up with me or Mr. Schwartz in email. Mike, is there anything that you think I forgot or anything you'd like to add, or do you think that kind of hit everything? Like clearance, I remembered. Yeah, eventually. Any other big questions, contractors, that might be pertinent to the entire group while you have me, or you can always follow up with email if you would like as well. No. Okay, cool. I have cards here. If you'd like to grab those. I'm so excited that you all came out. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you. lead training or.
I'll build all that out.
Yeah. We're all sold out. Yeah.
I tried to make it come, but she didn't want to come.
Well, that's right.
I already did this one.
I could not speak.
Guys work on my house.
Oh. Oh, yeah. How long ago was it?
Last schedule.
Oh, okay. All right, everybody. So we are starting the housing rehabilitation meeting. We just ended the contractor meeting. So anybody who's here for the applicant meeting, we do have applications here. I can walk you through which ones you need to pick up just in case anybody needs to leave. And then we'll do a
We
presentation.
shouldn't have to do a no applicant.
Yes.
You need to do a new one?
Yes.
I was gonna say
Yes.
that.
So here, I'll walk you through that.
Yeah.
So we have a full presentation for you guys on these applications.
Where are they?
They're all right here. So these are the guidelines for the program, if everybody knows them. These are for landlords and your tenants, and then these are for the homeowners. So if you're an owner occupied application, you can grab those there.
Thank you.
Landlord tenants here, just in case anybody needs to leave, I don't want you, running out the door without one. And then, do we have more housing rehab plans or plans? Those already gone.
These are the landlords, right?
Yes,
So-
landlord here, and then you also need one for yourself.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I figured it was.
You have multiple properties?
Yeah.
Okay, cool,
So
yeah.
do I need to take these properties?
Yes, you want one, actually, for your landlord? Yes, we're about to start that meeting right now. She is your city representative over there, with the blonde hair that's helping with application. Yeah. Yes, yeah, oh, yeah, those are contractors, yeah. Yeah, I would say here's the one for. And I know we have one for each tenant. I'll ask them to print some more. I'll ask them to print some more. We are out of rehab guidelines and home. Can you raise your hand if you're needing a homeowner application before we ran out? 1,
I do.
2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. About 5, 6-ish, looks like, of the homeowner. Yeah. And then probably about 10 rehab plans. Yeah.
Is the application in this packet?
Yeah, so
We got applications.
Yeah, that was a free.
are you being Yeah. Yeah, you can take a seat. She said it might be in it, and then she'll pass them out. Oh, no. Oh my goodness. Yeah, if everybody could take a seat, I can kind of explain to everybody all the questions that you guys are asking. So they're printing off some more applications. If you did not get an application, those will be out soon, as well as the housing rehabilitation guidelines. Just in case anybody has to leave, I'm going to go over this, early so I can hopefully answer those questions. So there are two things you may have grabbed up here. One is the housing rehabilitation plan that looks like this. So this is a full document that goes over all the rules and regulations for the program. It's a public document that guides everything that we have to disclose to residents for the grant. So that's information, this whole one, okay? And then if you got one of these with a little house on it, you're gonna wanna double check at the very bottom. If you're a landlord, you need a landlord application. And then also one that says a tenant application for each property you have. And then the homeowner, if you're a homeowner, you occupy the house, you're living in the house that you're applying for, that owner occupied homeowner application, I believe it's homeowner. Yeah. On the bottom, thank you. I was gonna say,
Little
owner,
print.
homeowner, you know,
Little print.
it's a little print, yeah. So those are all the applications. We fleshed out the applications a little bit more than we have in the past. So we wanted to start it early with having your income guidelines right there on the front, right? So you can look at it, you can see what the income guidelines are, and if you qualify. Are you needing a homeowner? Oh, you need that one. Okay. So you can see what those income guidelines are kind of right out the gate. Know if your income qualified for the program, right? We're going to go over all of that in more detail too. But I just wanted to show you that. And then you're going to have your full application here. You're going to make sure that you fill out your information completely. First, it asks for like the property address and your name, right? And then it's going to ask for you to list yourself again and provide us with your information. It does ask on this application your age, your disability status, ethnicity, and things to that effect. Those items have no effect and and pertain not whatsoever to your approval or denial in the program. Those are required to be reported in all the grant reporting data that's given to at the federal level for who's being served in the grant. It has nothing to do if you're approved or denied, but it is required. Sometimes people leave that blank because they don't want to disclose that. But we're going to call you and ask you for it anyways. So if you are a landlord and you want to try to get a discounted rate on your landlord contribution, you can fill out your income section, and that may be possible. Guidelines on that are changing right now, but it might be possible if you submit your documentation and you qualify in this range that you may be able to receive a discount. And that is why that section says optional on income and it's not required on the landlord application. Everybody else needs to submit income documentation, and everybody will kind of work through the application, provide information on your home, and make sure that you please read all of your disclosures. All the items that you need to turn in are listed in this box. And please make sure you read.
What page is that on there?
I think it might be different on the one I have versus you, but this one's page 5.
Yeah.
But it's a big box. Right after step number 5.
What? I'm not sure.
I see that.
I'm following along.
Right. So bottom of page 5,
Okay.
if you have a homeowner application, is what you're going to need to turn in with your application. And if you have any questions on that, you can certainly reach out to the contact info at the city. Please make sure you go through this step number 6, what to expect. It gives you a really good idea of what to expect in the program and kind of goes over all the like little things that you'll need to know. Throughout the grant and the application process, I'm kind of there with you. I'm walking you through every, step of the way. After your application's turned into the city and the city has collected everything and they get to our organization, I'll be kind of there with you every step of the way explaining things. But it's good to know all of those requirements in advance to see if this is a good fit for you or not. Okay. We also have an insurance authorization form. And that allows us to contact your homeowner's insurance agent, because before we start work, we have to make sure that the house is insured still. And sometimes that can be hard for people to get. People are busy, you know. Nobody likes, making those phone calls. So this allows us to reach out to your homeowner's insurance agent directly and just call them and say, hey, is this still valid? And it just takes the work off your plate, So it's just to help keep things moving in a timely manner. We also have some other requirements for landlords listed in here, so please make sure you go over those. And then on the very last page, or pretty close to the last, you want to make sure that you fill out what type of income you have. This says I have tax or 2025 taxes, or I have Social Security letters, or I have pension letters, or things to that effect, and you sign that form. So you're going to want to work through this entire packet from front to back, and I'm going to go over in this presentation more about what all that needs. But I just wanted to, I just wanted to touch on that really quick in case anybody had to run out the door, okay? But if you read everything that's in here and go through it, it should answer most of the questions and what we're going over today as well. So I'll go ahead and get started and actually tell you who I am if you'd like. Yes, so to be really clear, so the city is responsible for applications and application outreach. I am not with the city. My name's Megan. Josie is here. She's your new municipal project manager with the city of Arkansas City, and she's the primary contact for those applications. So,
I think I talked to her on the phone.
oh yeah,
My question is, so supposed to be a $25,000 grant for Ark City residents only, right?
yes,
And some of it's, majority of it's from the federal, some of it's from the city too, right?
it's primarily from the federal level.
And you were saying a while ago, so if I ain't got no insurance on my house at all, I'm screwed out of luck.
Yeah, I plan to go through that a little bit more in the presentation.
They told me I couldn't get no insurance on my house.
Right,
Until I had my roof redone.
right.
I don't need the whole thing done, just the side that leaks. I gotta get out 5 or 6 5-gallon buckets.
Right.
You know,
Right. So if you have a particular repair that's causing you to not be able to have traditional homeowners insurance right now, there are some programs out there that will give you temporary coverage that can be available. We have to have some kind of coverage that covers the amount of work that we're doing while we're doing it. So there are programs like the Kansas Fair Plan, or there may be some other alternative programs I'm unaware of. But I know that those can provide you with at least a basic temporary coverage while we're doing construction work, so that we can then complete that work. But you will be required after we're done to move it into a regular homeowner's insurance policy. So you'll have to see if that's a good fit.
Ads too on my TV about getting your bathroom remodeling. I got one of these antique claw cast iron tubs about getting high. The claw, I can still get in the thing, but it's kind of hard to get out of it. But, my bathroom is a few inches under 8 foot square, about 7'10" by 7'10". I call these things on my TV. And one of them quoted me 10 grand. Another one quoted me 30 grand.
Yeah.
Lady, my whole property's not worth that much.
Yeah.
I said, I have 3.5 lots, small 2-bedroom house. My property's only worth $12,500.
Right.
Be real here. I'm not stupid.
Well, if you don't mind, I want to go ahead and get started because I appreciate everybody's time and I don't want to delay anything. So we're going to go ahead and move to the next slide. So we are SCED. We're the South Central Kansas Economic Development District, and my name is Megan Unruh, and this is Mike Schwartz. So I'm the grant administrator overseeing the project. I've been working with the city of Ark City since writing the grant, doing all the narratives and the paperwork, and a previous meeting. So if you've been here before, you might have seen me before at your last housing meeting. And now we are doing the administration of the project. So we're a nonprofit entity. We have over 50 years of experience in the South Central Kansas area. We have lots of different programs that we work in as well. Next slide, please. So we have the weatherization assistance program that we're a part of, kind of almost in the south half of Kansas. This program is currently available in your county as we speak. This is reserved for typically low-income residents to help them save money on their utility bills. We look at HVAC, insulation, things to that effect, and we'll touch on that more. We also have a loan department. We have grant writing and grant administration services, which is where I live. And then we also have a program in Reno County for housing rehabilitation as well. And that's a full map of our service territory, just so you can see kind of the widespread reach that we have within our region and where we're doing work. And a little bit about our experience in programs and grants that we have previously worked in. We have lots of experience in inspection and housing rehabilitation and decades of work across our community. So, of course, what we're talking about specifically today is the Community Development Block Grant for Housing is what this grant is called. So the Community Development Block Grant is a federal grant that then is passed down to the Kansas Department of Commerce. And then small cities can apply, directly to the Kansas Department of Commerce for these grants on behalf of their citizens. So that's kind of how that funding works. They can be applied to owner-occupied houses, rental homes, and then these grants are eventually awarded to the city themselves. To even apply for this grant, your city went through an extensive housing analysis so that they could understand the community better, where the needs really lied, and that analysis allowed them to really have a leg up to apply for this grant. The maximum award of what the city can apply for at this time is $300,000 for this grant, and then each property can qualify for up to $25,000 each. Yeah. It's called a Community Development Block Grant is the name.
I'm thinking that it's not actually a block, say, the whole block on each.
Yeah, they used to do that actually. And that's what the previous grant was. Yeah. This is the first grant that's been approved for a full citywide application, actually. That's very recently changed. We used to have a very specific target area that we had to write the grant for, prove the need for, and but as we know, that can really leave maybe other parts of the city out. Commerce has seen the need to really have these type of grants open citywide. So those rules and regulations have been changed, and this is the first grant that's been approved with that new. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we've been talking about it for a long time. So we're really, really excited about that. Awesome. Thank you. So these are kind of the different segments of what this grant can be used for, because I'm going to be really transparent about all of this, right? So we can do owner-occupied housing, right? So that's you applied, you income qualify, you live in the home, you own the home, right? That's owner-occupied housing. That always has a goal to be zero cost to the person that owns the home and is living in it. There's rental housing. Rental housing also is available. We have to have an application from the landlord and the tenants. And then the landlord traditionally is responsible for 25% of the program costs. As mentioned previously, sometimes there are discounted rates available for landlords who also qualify in that low to moderate income range. Those guidelines may be changing, so I just want to be upfront about that possibility might still exist, but that is in fluctuation right now. We also have demolition available if the city chooses to do that at the end of the project, if there's additional funds. And we also can pay for relocation if necessary in this program. Relocation is very rare. Relocation typically happens when a homeowner has little children and there's lead-based paint in the home. If we have a child that's under the age of 6 in the home, we know that lead-based paint and lead-based paint dust hazards are incredibly detrimental to their health. And the program requires that while that lead-based paint work is occurring, regardless if it's contained by plastic and this and that and whatever, that child has to be outside the home. And sometimes we run into situations, most of the time folks are like, I'll go stay with my sister. She's got a kitchen. It's nicer. She's got an extra bed. We know them, they're family. We'll just stay there. But if we run into situations where that is not accessible and that is not possible, It is possible that we can help provide relocation assistance while that work is going underway in a local hotel or a hotel that's nearby. If you have a little one and relocation doesn't sound plausible for you, that would be your choice to see if this program sounds like, it might be a good fit for you, but we do have those resources to assist if needed. And then, of course, administration and inspection, all these community development block grants, all the different types that exist do require having a professional grant administrator to oversee the project. So that's where I come in. The grant does provide funding for our services to our nonprofit, and then also for the inspection services that Mr. Schwartz oversees. That's it. So I just wanted to get these up so we could look at again the income limits that are current for Cowley County. These change on a yearly basis, so they are recently updated. It goes off as you see number of residents in the house and the maximum income. You may have somebody living in your house that's not your immediate family member. They're still counted as a number of residents in your home. Just to, disclose that early and often. Your income amount is going to go off of your adjusted gross income on your tax return, not your taxable income. It's going to say adjusted gross income, or AGI. And some folks have allowances on their AGI for things that they have. Like if you draw a pension, but you also draw Social Security, there's probably a big chunk of your Social Security that's not going to be included on your AGI, right? But Commerce wants us to go off of tax returns as much as possible for a primary source of income. That's going to include everything, right? So we always want tax returns. If you do not have tax returns, that's not a deal breaker. We do have to have you sign a special attestation in your packet. That's one of those back pages, right? That you acknowledge and understand that you are not required to file a tax return due to where your income comes from, right? Or age or, status. But that you understand that if you're not being truthful about that information, that you can be liable for repaying those funds, right? So in that case, you'd provide your Social Security benefits letter, or your veterans benefits letter, or your pension letter, or whatever supplemental income that you may have. Did you have a question?
Okay, we have a tax return, however, it includes a job that we no longer have, so we'll just have something a date of last date of employment to add to that, or is there a place for that?
There's no place specifically on the application for that, but I definitely understand, the change there. Would that change your qualifications of being approved or denied, or would you still qualify either way?
I think we'll still qualify no matter what.
Okay.
But I just also want to say, we no longer even have that.
Yeah. If you're going to qualify either way, I would go ahead and turn in that former tax return. And then maybe with your application, I would write a letter or a note or turn that in with it as well. Stating, I would turn that in as well and have them make copies of that just so we can put that in your file. If we get into the case of ties on these applications, there is a ranking system outlined in that housing rehabilitation plan that we had, or that we have, that we might need to defer to. And there might be, preference to those who have a lower income, right, on the application process. So I would definitely put that note in, or that letter in with your application. Yeah, you're fine.
We just need a copy of the page that has the AGI, right? You don't need the whole package.
We don't need the entire tax return, but those first few core documents we absolutely need, where it lists everything kind of out. It's like the first two or three pages.
And then
Yeah.
W-2s also?
No W-2s. We don't need any W-2s. Yeah. Just tax return, and that's it. Yeah, we absolutely need those because we realize all the rest of it's kind of supplemental, right?
So if we have those, and still need to still.
No.
Okay. It's either
Yeah,
or.
it's either or.
Okay. that
If
was
you
my
have tax returns cover all, right?
question. Okay.
So we don't need Social Security. We don't need extra XYZ. If you have the tax returns, that shows everything that you
That's
have.
2025.
Yes, 2025 is what we're going off now. So if you have that, you're good. I had something else. Maybe I'll circle back to it. I can't remember what it was. You're welcome. Does anybody else have questions on income while we're here? Because I know a lot of folks have questions on this, but if you have a question you're not comfortable saying in front of everybody too, feel free to grab my card or ask me afterwards. I know income's sensitive, right? So if you don't want to say that in front of everybody, that's totally reasonable. Okay, next one. Okay, so we want to give everybody an idea of kind of things that are commonly worked on in the program. This isn't a remodeling program, right? We can't do like jacuzzis, right? I don't know why that's always the example. We can't do jacuzzis. We can't do hot tubs. We can't do clawfoot bathtubs, you know. We can't do marble countertops, but we can do things that fall underneath health and safety concerns. So as you can see, that covers a lot of things, right? Roof repair replacement, HVAC, siding repair replacement, electrical, plumbing, radon gas, which we'll cover as well, lead-based paint repair, which we'll go into further as well, window repair replacement, minor foundation repair, and anything else that could fall underneath health and safety, right? So if you need a ramp, that's going to fall underneath a whole slew of items that we can put into your scope of work for accessibility. Excuse me. As long as it qualifies as a health or safety item, we can consider it in the scope of work for the project. You will find within your application that it does note that the homeowner does not have full say out of all the items that are on your scope of work for the project. The inspector is going to look at everything that needs to be done on your house for health, safety, livability, and create a prioritized list of need, right? So if you have holes in your roof, but you also would like to swap out your bathtub for a walk-in shower for ADA accessibility, we can't do the bathroom, right, if we spend all the money on the roof, right? Just as a wild example, right? We got to make sure the structure remains standing, right? And those other items are kind of more like icing on a cake, right? So if we have additional funds after major items are covered, we can do or look at your scope of work having some of those extra things. But overall, the inspector is going to look at the whole scope of work on the house, and they're going to say, these are the top things that really need to be done here that we want to put the most money towards, and then we're going to look at the extras. So the application does state that I know I don't have say over, what work is done on my home, but I will say that Mike takes the homeowner's thoughts and needs into high priority and consideration on that scope of work. So I just wanted to put that out there. I think that's everything on that. This program runs in kind of two phases, right? So the last slide is all of our grant fund things that we typically do. This slide pertains to the Kansas Weatherization Assistance Program. You will find that in your packet, actually, I don't know if it was on there. There should be a weatherization application. Okay, good. Okay. I just missed it. There should be a weatherization application at the back of the packet. Yes. Okay. So, as previously mentioned, SCED operates the Weatherization Assistance Program for the state of Kansas and almost the south half of Kansas. And as I said before, this program is specifically usually geared towards low-income residents. However, due to rules surrounding federal use of funds on homes, if your home participates in this program and you're getting grant funds from this Community Development Block Grant, you can automatically income qualify to be assessed for weatherization too if you fill out that application. That application isn't required by any means, but it really gives us flexibility and a lot more that we can do in a project if we have that on file as well. So you'll find that it's redacted. Your income approval is coming from the grant side, not the weatherization side, right? We don't want it to come from that side. So there's been a lot of information crossed out on that application, and it looks silly, but it's right. It's comical. Thank you. Yeah, yeah. So that's really to just keep you from worrying about any of that stuff that like you don't need to worry about. You don't have to fill it out, right? We wanted to make it as easy as possible. So you'll have a little bit less to worry about and to fill out, right? So we want you to get that full application for the grant turned in. Weatherization is optional, but we highly suggest it because in the weatherization program, we can look at repairing or replacing your HVAC systems. We can look at your duct work. We can do an assessment of mechanical ventilation, insulation in attics and crawl spaces, air sealing measures, and other items that are approved by an energy audit, which we'll go over as well. Yeah. Oh, sorry, sir.
Is this weatherization program separate than the two?
Mhm.
The both of them are under one grant?
No.
Or you got the
Yeah.
separate, so
Yeah.
you can get rewarded on the weatherization and also on the other.
Yes. If you've previously got had your home weatherized in the past 10, 12, 15, I'm sorry. Mike's the expert on that side. I'm not in the weatherization department, but I work with them a lot, right? So in the weatherization plan, if you've had your house served by them in the last 15 years, you're not typically re-eligible for that program. So I'll put that out there first, but they are technically separate programs. So
So get two different funding.
two different funding sources, which is why we can layer them on top of each other. They won't let you layer like a federal grant on top of a federal grant. But since this is a state grant and a federal grant, we can put those funds on top of each other to get as much work done as possible. Yes. Oh,
And that one application that we feel that covers both sides?
no, you have to fill out that very first app. Do you have a landlord app or
I have home.
you have a homeowner? Okay. So your weatherization application's at the very back of the packet and your grant one's at the very front in there.
Okay.
You're welcome. Yeah. Oh, let me get her first. She was next. Yeah.
Typically, if windows are needed, would those be covered under weatherization or no, that's?
You know, that would be great because then we'd have so much more grant money. So I was going to cover this in a minute, but great time for it. So the weatherization program, we have a cap on the grant side, right? We got the cap. It is what it is. We can't go past that. The weatherization program assesses things differently. They take in a really complex, I would say, assessment of the property and the energy efficiency. And then they feed all that data into a computer system that's required for that program. And then that audit software is what that's called, right? And then that software determines what can be payable in that program. So can XYZ repair, if we spend if it spends this much money to do that item, can it provide this much in energy savings to pay for itself back or things to that effect? And typically with the cost of windows these days, we're not really seeing windows approved, right, anymore through that program. I believe in the past, right, very long time ago, that might have been the case. But windows are typically not really approved on the weatherization side. So we will typically handle that on the grant side. And then we'll leave those other items to the weatherization assessment, like your insulation, HVAC, duct work, things to that effect. Yeah. Sorry, front row first.
I'm gonna back up a minute.
Okay.
So you stated the fact that it reduced the weatherization plan.
And 15 years
Okay,
is what
is that based on ownership
existence of the property.
of,
Yes. So if the person who owned the home before you was already weatherized, that still applies. But we ran into that recent, well, we would look at it and we would know. Yeah. Yeah. So you can go ahead and fill it out. And then we'll look at it and see if it's been weatherized previously. Yeah. And also our inspectors would know. We do like certain type of work and certain quality of work in that program where I think sometimes they walk into a house and they're like, we definitely weatherize this place, you know? So yes, ma'am.
The income for weatherization versus the community block grant, is it?
Yes.
The community block grant is adjusted gross income.
Yes.
What about your campus weatherization?
Weatherization does different income, right? But for this program, okay, so I'll address this two ways. So if you were doing this grant and this program, your tax returns, everything I mentioned, that's the way we're going, right? But if you have other properties that you're thinking about or other applications, or maybe you don't get approved for the grant funds and you want to apply separately, you can still do that. And I think they take proof of if you're already on any sort of assistance such as Social Security, TANF, LEAP, things to that effect. And then I believe W-2s. I'm not in that department though. So you'd have to check our website specifically. So for our purposes for this project, just W-2s, or not W-2s, sorry, just tax returns all the way.
So
So
if you fill out both applications and turn it in to this program, you will check, I mean, if the tax return will suffice for both.
yes, ma'am. Yes, yes, yes. And I know that is incredibly confusing. So I appreciate you asking for clarification. It is super confusing, right? But if you're applying and you get the grant and you do both applications and you turn in your tax returns, you should not be asked for any more documentation for income. That should be it. So yeah,
We go fill this out and mail it to the address on that.
no, ignore that.
Again,
Ignore that last page. You're going to turn it back into the city. Yeah.
I don't remember my account number for my electric bill. If that was it.
Yeah. Yeah. You want to turn in all your documents back to the city, which we'll go over as well.
You got a deadline to turn this back in?
Yes. It's in my slide. I'd have to check the date. It's in here though. I want to be upfront. There are a couple inspections that have to be done. This is federal money, right? They want to make sure that we're doing all the right things. There's a few inspections that have to occur before work can begin on a property. So the way the process works is you turn in all your application materials to the city, all your documents, everything that's included in the packet. You get that in the city's hands and they do kind of a pre-look over that it looks good. They turn it into us for final approvals and we'll send out letters, let everybody know that you've been approved, or if you're on a wait list or what might be missing from your file, things to that effect. We'll go through it all and then send out letters to everybody, okay? And then after that phase, when we have that first chunk of approved applicants, we will send, I will let Mr. Schwartz know who turned in approved applications, and he'll come out and he'll look at a bunch of properties in one day to see how everything looks, assess the scope of work on the project. And that's what this first inspection is. So Mike's looking. Yeah. I highly recommend it. I really, really want it. Yes, he'll call you before he comes. Very, very, very important to make sure the phone number that you put on your application is a phone number we can reach you at. Please ensure that your voicemail box is working. That really helps us a lot. Because, nobody wants to answer a phone number they don't know. Nobody calls me from a phone number I don't know. It's always spam. It's always someone trying to sell me something, right? So you might not answer his first call, right? So please ensure that you have a voicemail box that can get his message so we can communicate with each other. It will. We're out of Wichita, so it will be a 316 number. As well as communication for me will be 316. Yeah. Love that. Love that. If you prefer text, you just write on under there text preferred, and we can text you. That's great too. So yes, sir.
We only got one inspector for all the properties that you're talking about?
No, we have several.
Oh, okay.
We have several, but Mike is the first. So Mike handles oversight of all the inspections and the scope of work for your project. So we want the same person looking at all these projects to make sure it's coming from the same perspective and that everything is on the same page. He's been doing this for, I don't, 20 years, something like that. So he knows what he's doing. We will come out and look at the properties. And these are things that we're going to be looking at when we are there at your initial inspection. We're going to be looking at the condition of your roof, your siding, your windows. If you have any concerns regarding your plumbing, please let Mike know about that. He's going to be looking at your electrical box to see if you have an electrical box that is a fire hazard, and things to that effect. On that initial inspection, I want everybody to know right out the gate. So if you need to make any changes, you can do that now. We cannot spend this money in houses that have excessive mold, excessive pests, excessive animal debris, or things to that effect, or excessive items. If there are excessive items in a home, that home will be temporarily denied until things are removed from the property and cleaned up so that we can work within the structure, okay? If you have a room that we can't walk through, or we only have pathways that we can walk through, we can't we can't work within homes that have like tons of boxes and all the rooms, or things to that effect. So if you need to work on any of those things, in the next 60 days, 30 to 60 days, I want to let everybody know that up front. If we get to a property and find that some of those adjustments need to be made, we're going to notify you by letter. We're going to give you a timeline in which we need you to respond back to us. If you remain in communication and let us know how that's going, we typically let those folks work on those things, and we work with you. And then we'll have photos. You'll need to send us photos of those corrections, okay? So I let everybody know that up front, just so we're all on the same page.
So you
Um,
said citywide,
Yes.
as far as rent.
Yeah.
My question is, do you have a specific number of homes that you're gonna allow, or you think anybody can?
About a max of 10 in the city. Yeah. If you have multiple properties you're submitting for, you may want to, in your application, limit that to 1 or 2. I would say if you have 7 properties that you're trying to get work done on, if my recommendation would be to prioritize that to 1 or 2 properties that you would like assessed for the program. Okay. No, you're fine.
Is this for Arc City, city limits only?
Yes. City,
So
Arc City city limits.
I live, 3 blocks outside of the Arc City, city limits, over there by the cemetery. I'm not qualified yet.
I do not know where your specific city boundaries lie or where your property would fall under, but I'm sure if you submit your address to the city, they'd be able to verify that for you and see exactly if you do or don't qualify.
It did say on one page for rural areas. I'm in the rural area.
This grant is defined as an award to the city of Arkansas City, city limits, as long as you are not in an active flood zone.
Oh, okay.
So it has to be city limits. I have no idea.
You're fine.
If you are in a property that is in a flood zone, we are not allowed to work on those structures unless you have a letter of map amendment from FEMA. If you have one of those, you already probably know you have one of those. If you're required to have flood insurance on your house, you're most likely in a flood zone and would not be eligible for work to be done in the project. Okay. I think that's it. Next one? Yes, this is him. Schwartz. I was trying to make you younger. I said 20 years. If Mike comes out, everything is good. Everything is lovely, right? When he's out, he's going to talk to you about the scope of work on your project, right? He's going to notice what he notices and create a prioritized scope of work for your project. If he knows there's holes in the roof, that's going to be a top item, right? But he also is going to ask you, what do you think needs to be done? What things do you struggle with, right? So that is going to be considered as well for your property. If everything's good, he will write up a preliminary scope of work for your project, and he will start the first phase of our environmental testing, which will be sending out our lead-based paint inspector. So typically, when he goes out for inspections, he will also do the radon testing, which I'll go over on the next slide here in just a second at the same time. But he comes out with our little testing equipment, and he can use that little XRF gun to test paint right on site and see where areas of lead-based paint are. And this tells us what we need to know about how we need to make sure your family's safe during construction, and how we communicate where lead-based paint is to your contractors, so we can ensure your contractors are following the rules during your project to make sure that your family remains safe. If you do have an area of lead-based paint, that's fine. We deal with lead-based paint homes all the time. Actually, having lead-based paint, if your paint is deteriorated in any areas, that's a key signal for us to be able to say, we need to replace that siding because that siding has all deteriorated lead-based paint, or we need to replace those windows because those windows are covered in deteriorating lead-based paint, or windows are a friction point, right, for lead-based paint, which can create lead-based paint dust and is a hazard, right? So that's very common in our program. Do not be worried, please, if you do have areas of lead-based paint. When that inspection is over and completed, you'll get a full report. It's completely free to you. It's paid by the program. It's yours to keep. That shows where areas of lead-based paint are. That way, even after the program, if you're having additional work done, you can make sure those areas are taken care of properly when you're doing work in your home or having additional work done. Next slide, please. And I know I skipped over children under 6 on lead-based paint because we already kind of talked about that. But if anybody has questions about that afterwards, be sure to let me know. Our next test that our inspectors typically do when they come out to do the lead-based paint test is the radon testing. Any project using federal funding that has people in it over 8 hours a day is required to have radon testing done. So radon is the second leading cause of lung cancer in the United States, and that varies by what's in your soil that's around your home and what is decaying in that soil and creates a gas that can come up in your home and unfortunately cause cancer. So we're going to check for that. We want to make sure that you guys are safe. The program pays for radon mitigation systems. That radon monitor will be kept in your house for 24 hours in a specific spot. So we just ask you not to touch it, leave it alone, right? Don't let the kids knock it over like mine would. And then we'll take care of you, and we'll make sure that if you need that system, that it gets done within your scope of work. If you do need a radon mitigation system, that comes out of a different bucket of money than the $25,000. That doesn't count against your $25,000, so you don't have to worry about that, okay? Next slide. And then the last thing, and then we'll leave you alone with inspections. If you're applying for those weatherization funds, whew, that was tough. If you're applying for those weatherization funds, this goes over the whole house energy audit that they perform on the structure to test where your house may be in need of insulation, how your HVAC is running, and things to that effect to be put into the audit system and see what they can pay for. I would say it's pretty common from what I see on average for our weatherization department to contribute an average of about $6,000 per property. Granted, that is an average. Sometimes we see 2, sometimes we see 1, sometimes we see way above that, right? So that's just kind of an overview of what they do in that program. And then most of this we've already gone over, but I want to make sure we touch on it. Applications are traditionally served in a first come, first served basis. If we do get into the case of a tie in which we need to use the raking system listed in your housing rehabilitation plan, the city will ensure that the city and SCED will work together to do so. For all applicants in the program, and a lot of folks usually have questions on this specific item, there is for your grant year, there's a 3-year occupancy agreement. They are moving to 5-year, but you guys just snuck in at the end. There's a 3-year occupancy agreement for the program. And what this means is if you receive grant funds on your property, the grant funds used in your property will be put will be filed with your Register of Deeds to have a temporary lien on your home for a 3-year period. That if the deed is transferred, you have to pay back a portion of those funds, is what that occupancy requirement means. You'll often hear me refer to it as a repayment agreement. So,
You're saying when you get this right now, can you come and do the work,
mhm.
fix whatever you need to sell your house within 3 to 5 years and you have to pay?
3 years for your grant year. I should have taken that off. That's my fault. But yeah, if you sell your house before that 3-year period is up, you have to pay a portion of that grant back through the sale of your home. Most people don't. Most people are like, I'm not worried about that at all. I'm going to stay here. They're like, after you fix my roof and my windows and my whatever, I'm going to die here, you know? But I want everybody to be aware of that up front. That is an agreement that you have to sign at your contract signing for your project. Some folks get scared by that, but that is a requirement that we cannot get around in the program. It has to be done, okay? Does anybody have any further questions on the repayment agreement, aka the occupancy agreement? No?
I got a question.
I think I had 2. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, let me get you first.
Oh, yeah, I have a question on, number 3 up there, it says required deed,
HOI would be your homeowner's insurance or proof of coverage.
have 2 of them.
You have 2 homeowners insurances?
No, have a homeowner's insurance, pay property tax.
Yes. Yes. So sorry, let's pause 1 second and I'll get to those. Did you have a repayment agreement question before I move on to the next bullet point? Yeah, sorry. Oh, okay. So for your application, we have to have a copy of your deed that shows that you own it, right? You're the owner. You have authorization to make these changes. If you have several parties on your deed, we need to make sure that all the people on that deed can sign your contract and they can sign your application, okay? If that is not doable, there might be some workarounds there. If you are currently, maybe, heaven forbid your spouse is deceased, or this or that, or, things to that effect. There might be some ways that we can help you or assist you in that process, and provide some guidance. So please don't be discouraged. We're happy to help you and provide direction in any way we can on that.
So if you're a durable power of attorney for your husband that cannot sign the signature.
You can sign for him if you're his power of attorney. We'll just ask for a copy of that power of attorney.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You need a copy of that.
Yeah, turn that in with it.
Or can you just sign this as initials?
I mean, yeah, if he's able to sign and has the ability to do that legally, then he can certainly do that. But if they're unable to do that in a legal capacity, then we would want your power of attorney documents so you could sign for them. So wherever that falls, yeah.
On the landlord.
Yeah.
Rehab, what do you call it, rental rehab?
Yes.
It stated that the landlords have to come up with 25% of the $25,000 amount that was stated.
Yes.
Okay, so my question is, at what point does that have to be paid?
That is an excellent question, right? Because if you're gonna have to pay that right out the gate and you don't know what's being done or this or that, right? That'd be terrible. So what we do is we want everything completely fleshed out right before we get to that phase. You're going to have all your inspections done. You're going to have all your estimates done. Everything is going to be ready to go. We sign the documents, everything is firm. And then I will issue you a letter. That states exactly how much that amount is. You already have an idea of what 25% is, right? But I'll give you the firm amount on paper, and then that will be paid to the city and held by the city until the end of the project, because the city is ultimately the person that pays the contractor. So we're required to hold those funds somewhere, right? We have to have proof that those exist, the proof that that is real, and that we have it in hand. So the city is going to hold on to those funds until the close of the project when the contractor's paid. Yes.
All right. In this day and time, $25,000 means much.
Mm-hmm.
What the work costs now.
Mm-hmm.
My house to be reworked costs over $25,000.
Whew. That's a lot of work.
That's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money. Yeah, for a roof.
You know, so if you, so I'm just saying.
What do we do?
look at-
Right? What do we
look
do?
at-
You're like, what do we do if your roof costs $27,000, right?
Or anything, say just a couple of things you're gonna do.
Great question.
That's $25,000. And
Yeah.
you need a lot of other things done.
Right. So that is going to be handled on a case by case scenario, right? So the inspector is going to have to look at the home, look what needs to be done the most. There's a high chance, that depending on your situation, the roof might be the top priority, on your property, right? So
Now, I was just using the roof.
as an example,
You
yeah,
know, I was just as an example,
right,
as with the prices of things that cost to have home repairs.
yeah.
The things that you have to have done.
If you want to pay the difference, if your roof costs like 27 grand and you want to pay the difference out of your own pocket, you can. That's possible. You can do that.
I think you're missing what I'm trying to, the answer I'm trying to get.
If your roof is bad, yeah,
This day and age, we can't do siding, roof, windows, doors.
Yeah.
We can't do it all anymore. So we're just doing most
thank you for simplifying that for me.
I ain't being greedy, on my north side of my house ain't leaking, the south side is, that side is like, well, on that.
It's pretty rare, like Mike said, that we can do every single thing on a house anymore, which we're really grateful that this program has changed because it used to be an all or nothing program. If we could not do everything, we had to walk away from the property. So if a house had broken windows and a bad roof and we couldn't pay for it all and the homeowner couldn't put any money in, we had to turn down the whole project. Thankfully, it's not like that anymore, and we're able to look at the house, assess the highest need on that property, and then try to work out a plan together with the homeowner of how to move forward. But if the roof is completely shot and the siding's completely shot and the windows are, completely shot and the foundation's bad, and on and on and on and on, it might not be a property that federal funding will allow us to put money into if everything is.
The other thing is, how much in my house, quarter county freezer is worth $12,500. We're supposed to have insurance on it. How much insurance do I need to get?
Okay, yeah. Thanks for getting me back on track on my list. Yes. So homeowners insurance. Traditional homeowners insurance, perfect, great. We need the homeowners insurance declaration page. If you don't have traditional insurance,
They told me a long time ago.
Yeah.
That would be that Stanford story. It wouldn't insure my house no more until I got the roof on.
Yeah.
I don't have that money to do
and that's pretty common. We run into that a lot. If you cannot get traditional homeowners insurance, you have to go through an alternative plan. There has to be some kind of coverage on your home to cover at least the amount of work that we're doing. So you have to have at least $25,000, $30,000 worth of coverage on the property for the project to proceed. There are some programs out there that I've had some folks use, like the Kansas Fair Plan is the one that I know of. I don't know of any others off the top of my head. There might be some others available, but that's just what I know. That is non-negotiable. We have to have coverage for at least the amount of work being done. The homeowner's insurance?
Yes, because we don't have it because we were told the walk-ins, when you walk in the house.
Yeah.
I did it myself. I put the steps in, but I didn't line them up right because I'm not a professional. And,
Yeah, yeah.
They said the thresholds were bad. And I just never went back to the diet and fixed it.
Yeah. You can turn in your application if you're missing that, and we can reach out to you and see what the status of that is. But I would encourage that to be done early.
insurance policy.
I'd say 30 at least. Yeah.
30,000.
Just in case. Yeah. Yeah. All right. I know we're running a little late, so I'd like to get through this last part kind of fast for you guys. Okay. So we have to have proof of paid property taxes done as well on the application. We already went over the denial reasons on the home, and your home has to be not in a flood zone, right? We went through all of those. And then to end out the presentation, we do have a couple slides of properties that we have already worked on. So I wanted to put this one on here since it is an Arc City house. New vinyl siding, roof replacement, windows, guttering, downspouts, splash blocks, and brought their electrical up to code on this project. Not a crazy before and after difference, but we were able to get quite a bit of work done and they were super pleased. So the next slide is a quote from your Arc City neighbor. She said, I was impressed by the repairs completed on my home, like the furnace, the gutters, and air conditioning. I didn't expect these extra repairs on top of siding and windows. The contractors were fast and professional. Being on retirement income, this allowed me to have repairs in my home I otherwise wouldn't have been able to afford. And that's from Mary Gillette. She said we could use her name and her photos because she wanted to tell everybody else about how happy she was with her project. The next slide is in Harper, Kansas. We just completed this one. New back door here, new vinyl siding, lots of painting done on this project. And then new electrical also brought up to code. So you can see that even though these are all health and safety items that we addressed, it creates a really big before and after picture here. And this is the impact that it had on this client. So Margaret McCann, she said, please use my name. Please tell everybody I know about this. She said, everyone was very helpful. All the people I was in contact with have been very nice. They were willing to answer my questions I had and were always polite. The appearance of the house is a real source of pride. People mention how nice it looks. It would have been very difficult for me to afford everything that was done. Also, I feel that the quality of work was very good.
So do you guys, in these repairs, that you're speaking of, that you will do on the home?
Yeah.
Do you buy these things in bulk where it's a
No.
affordable price, or you just, who goes and buys how much?
No, I'm actually going to cover that in just 1 second. So this was a property that was renovated in Cedarville, Kansas. You can see how on some of these smaller homes, we can get a really big flip done. All the items here were done on this house: windows, siding, roof replacement, front porch, guttering, tuck pointing, electrical work brought up to code. And in the following slide, he also received a little new back deck that he needed replaced. So really the works on some of these smaller homes, so that money can go a long ways. And then on the next slide, this was his experience in Cedarville. He said, everything's been great. They did my windows, siding, back deck, front porch, and roof. And I'm really happy with it. The team was great. They were easy to communicate and work with. And the quality of work has been really good. I recommend this project to other homeowners. And then the last one I want to show you is an example of what we can do now with some emergency repair resources that we have. Previously, this house would have been a denial. There were 2 items on this house that we, considered health and safety items, and we would have had to walk away from this project. We know people aren't going to move out of their homes if they're unsafe. They're going to remain in their homes that are unsafe and continue to be unsafe. So we were super happy. This is the first project we were able to get approved for emergency funding so that we could rebuild the entirety of the porch and the porch overhang. And we also brought her electrical up to code on the inside so that you no longer have extreme fire hazards. So I wanted to show you that is a flexible example of what we can do. Now, after all the inspections are done, the project is going to be all put together. I send you the full scope of work in the mail, in a letter. You have it on paper. You know exactly what's going to be done. It's most likely all the things that you talked to Mike about the very first time he was out to visit you. And then we'll have a day where we'll have contractors that are eligible to work in the program come out and provide estimates for the project. These contractors have to have lead safe work practices certifications. They have to be insured. They have to be licensed. They have to be registered with the federal government and not on the debarment list. There's a lot of work that they have to go through to even be a part of this program. The city will assess the bids for the lowest, most responsible bidder. The city will award the contractor. Residents will not award their own contractor. Owners will not award their own contractor. That has to be done through a fair and open bidding process due to it being federal funds. We're not trying to be mean, and we don't, we just have to vet them a certain way and make sure that they have all the things that they're required to have. So that's what that process looks like. So there it is. Due date for applications are April 24th. Make sure you complete your applications in full and read everything. I think so.
April 24th, right?
April 24th. You're going to turn those into the city.
So I gotta have proof of insurance by then.
I highly recommend that you have proof of insurance by the time you turn in your application due to the response we expect to see.
I was telling your boss earlier, my house is only worth $12,500, so 12,500, how much insurance do I need to get on it?
For them, I was like, am I insane? This is the third time I've answered this question. Minimum of the work that's being done. You're going to have at least 30 grand, you know? You know? Yeah. If you get into a bind, reach out to the city, talk to the city.
They appraised it last year, and then this year.
Yeah.
How did it get to be over
All right.
$1,000?
Anybody else have any questions I can answer? Thank you. Yeah, that's fine. I'd be happy to chat.
We can still get all the information together, hand it in as soon as possible.
Yes. So Josie here at the city, right, is going to be your primary contact. You don't have to make the copies. If that's hard for you to do, you can bring in all your copies. Don't staple them. Just leave them like they are. Have her scan them in, and she'll keep those. The way that we get those at my office is through a secure digital Dropbox. It's not sent through email. It's sent through an encrypted Dropbox so that we can get all that stuff safely and your data is protected.
So we bring this back up here before April 24th.
You're going to take it to the city.
You got an office or something, we go right in one thing.
Yeah. Yes.
Corner office up there with
Yeah, so that's the tricky part about the tenant and landlord. You have to make sure that your tenant's willing to provide all that stuff. Granted, they get a huge benefit of having all these, things done on your home. And then please be sure to read the full packet for the landlord application. It also includes a rental rate agreement in there too.
And I did, that brings back one more question.
Yeah.
The numbers for I think that is well under, but is that available online for the reasonable rental rate?
Yeah. If you take one of my cards too, I can email that to you directly. I have yet to see a landlord rental rate that has been above those actually. But if you want to check that in advance, I'd be happy to pull that for you and I can send it to you. Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah. If anybody who has specific questions would like to stay after, I'd be happy to chat. Mike is here as well. He'd love to answer your inspection related questions. He's a chatty Cathy. He loves talking. April 24th.